Imagine if I handed you a vial of yeast and asked you to brew a beer with it. You can brew any recipe you like, just make sure to use my yeast. When it comes time to drink the finished beer, how confident would you be that you could identify the yeast strain used? That's exactly the challenge the Brü Club are undertaking. We're going to be tasting beers, taking guesses, and finding out who knows their fermentations from their imaginations. This episode is sponsored by Great Fermentations. More on them in a bit. Hey, how's it going? My name's Martin Keane. Now, I partnered with the Brü Club for this Frankenbrew. That's an online brew club. It has close to 4,000 members. It's free to join. It's great fun. Link in the description for that. So let's get to our meat. Thank you for getting me involved with this challenge, this Frankenbrew challenge with everybody here at the Brü Club. This is fantastic. So can you tell me a little bit more about how this came to be, how it's been running and so forth?
Yeah, a couple months ago, we've got this semi-secret society of paid members. I believe everybody here is a part of it. So we went ahead and went to writebrew.com and purchased, I believe, 60 to 80 packets of very expired yeast. And
wait, this is expired yeast? I didn't know that.
Yeah, maybe that's a clue as to what isn't in these vials. So anyone that guessed Pomona, I'm afraid you're wrong. But our leadership member, Haven Schultz, just went ahead and took all this yeast that we ordered, poured them into vials, mailed them out to everybody, and we're doing a little bit of a game where everybody's brewing with this yeast. They know nothing about it other than it's dry yeast, and they're going to try to guess what strain it is.
So today we are going to all find out together what the yeast strain actually was, but not before we've actually all taken a guess as to what we think we've brewed. So we'll go through one by one, and actually some of you have even taken the trouble of sending me beers. So would it be possible to start with Doug? Because Doug's already sent me one of his beers. And Doug, maybe you could tell me a little bit about your beer, the Frankenbrew, which is a beer de garde.
Sure. So when I started, I wanted to put together a recipe that achieved a couple of goals. The first thing is I wanted a beer that was something I'd want to drink when it's done. And I wanted a beer that was versatile enough that if it was an English yeast, it'd be a porter. If it was a lager yeast, it would be a Schwarzbier. If it was an American yeast, it would be a severely under-hopped American brown. So that was kind of the goal. So I put together a recipe, 65% Maris Otter, 15% Vienna, 5% of both English chocolate and flaked oats, and about 4% of Crystal 60 and Crystal 20 to give it a nice 40 blend, and just a little under 1% roasted barley. And I felt like I had a recipe that would cover the gambit of what the guys would throw at us.
I'm all down to any recipe that involves a lot of Maris Otter. 65%, that's good. This is a beautiful looking beer.
If you know anything about me, you know I'm very competitive. So when they said that there was a goal of guessing the yeast, I wanted to be one of the ones to get it right. So I wanted to give myself every advantage. So I set out with a fermentation temperature that I felt would also give me data. So I fermented at 52 degrees in Fahrenheit. And my thought process was, if it's a lager, it'll kick off and I'll know it's a lager. And if it takes longer than 2 days, I know it's probably not a lager at that temperature. So that's kind of warm for a lager. 3 days in, nothing. So I'm like, oh, it's an ale. And I kicked it up to 56. 3 hours later, it was running like a rocket. So much so, I'm like, oh, I might have, maybe it was happy at that temperature. So I dialed it back to 52. And it fermented out in 2 days, 90% attenuation. So all of this kind of just started giving me thoughts, and I thought, oh, okay, I'm down to 2 yeast in my head that could perform like that under those circumstances. One of them was an English yeast, and one of them was a Belgian yeast. And then after a couple of days, it got a little bit of conditioning, and then I started to see that Belgian character come in. Just light Belgian, though, because it fermented so cold, it really muted a lot of the aggressive Belgian character, but it's definitely Belgian. And the only dry yeast that I know be happy as a happy little camper at 52 degrees and ferment like a rocket and get 90% attenuation from the Belgian dry yeast category, it would be Lalemant's La Brew Belle Saison.
That sounds plausible to me. I don't think it's Nottingham either. So, Alex, what's the answer?
Yeah. The good news, well, actually, there's just good news, Doug. It looks like not only did you get it right that it's a Belgian yeast and that it's the French saison yeast, but it was even La Brü Belle Saison. Just, yeah, everything's right there, man.
Very good. Okay, should we go with Dick's beer here?
Sure. So, not as thoughtful as Doug in any way, but I did try to pick a recipe that could sort of go the same way. The only thought I put into it again was obviously this could be any sort of strain of yeast. I didn't know what I was getting. So I tried to make a malt bill that I thought could go English, it could go German, or it could go Belgian. It could go any way, which way. So Munich malt as the base with a little bit of chocolate. Basically, I was saying, hey, I'm going to make a Vienna lager.
When you tried the beer, were you happy with the result?
Sometimes it seems to be okay, and then sometimes after I'm drinking a couple beers, and then I crack one of these open, I think it's rancid. So I don't really know what to think.
Well, it is a very confusing beer, just for drinking this. Because I'm, picking up on some of the chocolatey, sort of the roasty malt that's in here, but I'm also picking up on sort of bubblegum Belgian as well. And those are two things I wouldn't expect to see going together, which might mean I'm just completely off and it's something entirely different. But yeah, I'm sort of thinking bubblegum Belgian-y kind of yeast strain for this one. Is that what you were thinking?
Yeah, that's what I did. I get the Abbey, the I don't even know who it is, Lallemand Abbey yeast, I think is what I guess.
Yeah, I'm afraid you're a little bit off. You got the right brand. Good guess going with La Brü since we can get them for pretty cheap. But it was the La Brü Munich Classic strain, which is their Bavarian wheat beer strain.
No way.
I would nominate Martin to taste mine next because I attempted to make a Dunkelweiss. I've never made one, and I threw a dart at a wall and said, let's make something I've never tried before.
Okay, so see, Ryan, I've got an A and a B here. What's the deal with that?
I hedged, definitely not as scientific as some of these guys, like smelling and tasting starters and all that nonsense. I did a simple pale ale. I've never even made a starter. Let's be clear. I did a simple pale ale and then threw the dart at the wall and said, what's a new style I've never tried in the BJCP, and I don't really know what it tastes like. So that's where Dunkelweizen came from. So I did a split batch of both. So yeah, A is going to be your pale. B is going to be what was attempting to be a Dunkelweiss.
Here's how they came out for me.
Oh, they look nice.
Beautiful.
Really look.
Hey, truly honest.
Cheers.
So everybody thinks they got a saison yeast, is what I'm hearing so far.
Yeah, but now it's funny because now you're saying stuff like banana, and I'm like, maybe I didn't. I don't know.
I'm not really picking up much on the saison side, although I'm not really sure what I am getting. It's so confusing to have two different drinks with the same yeast, and they taste so different.
And that has me wondering if it's one of these. If we're sticking with Lallemand, I'm just kind of Googling on the website here. They've, I think they've got some that are a little more neutral, lower level, like the wit, Belgian wit, maybe.
And that's the La Brü Belle Saison strain.
Oh, see, that was my original guess that I had.
Shouldn't have listened to Martin.
Yeah, I misled you there. But hey, congrats on the beers. These are both good.
Awesome.
And the carbonation is fantastic in these. Now, there were a bunch more reveals, including some folks who absolutely nailed it.
I can go next to this since we've been talking a lot about the yeast. I think I actually have. I was pretty confident that I had some version of a Hefeweizen yeast. Just a lot of banana, orange, kind of fruity flavors with that. So the finished product was definitely a very nice tasting, what I consider just a really classical Hefeweizen with great banana, a little bit of that kind of candied orange.
All right, yeah, now exactly it. Of course, 6129A is exactly Munich Classic. Got exactly right.
Thank you. I'm
Too.
so glad Doug isn't the only one to get it right. Thank God.
And many of the others, well, they got pretty close as well.
Yeah, so with mine, I didn't do anything super complicated like you guys did. Ultimately, my guess on that beer was, and I know every one so far has been Lala Man, but I'm sticking to my guns, by God. I'm sticking to my guns. This is Fermentus WB06.
Yeah, actually, turns out you got the right country, but the Belle Saison strain is what it looks like today.
Okay, wow.
Yeah.
Crazy.
But how well would I do and Brülosophy contributor Alex? Well, before we get to that, a quick word on today's sponsor, Great Fermentations. Family owned and operated for more than 25 years, Great Fermentations offers a huge range of brewing supplies and equipment. Great Fermentations are well known for their top-notch customer service, which I can fully attest to. Great Fermentations offer the ability to custom build your malt bills in fractional amounts, so you're not forced to order full pound increments when you only need a half or quarter pound of something. And shipping is free on most orders over $59. Check them out at greatfermentations.com. Now, for my beer, I put together a best bitter recipe, mainly Maris Otter with some Crystal 80 and pale chocolate. And now why this malt grist? Well, I've probably made this grist more than any other. I really like this recipe for best bitter. So that will allow me to really focus on the contributions that the yeast impart, because I'm already so familiar with this base recipe. For hops, I went with 2 additions of EKG, and then it was in with the mystery yeast.
Martin, do one or both of us need to embarrass ourselves?
We do. For the malt bill, I decided to go with like an English bitter, just because.
Of course.
Well, for 2 reasons. Like, one, it's like, right, malt bill I've made the most, so I feel it might be easier to sort of notice any changes in the yeast. But also, I kind of hoped, being the British guy on this project, that I'd get sent some British yeast. Our funding is not such that we can buy non-expired yeast at the moment. It'd just be sending it out willy-nilly or so.
We are a thriving club.
I think, like a lot of people, we're sort of thinking, this tastes saison-y to me, at least initially. I'm going to go with some kind of hardhouse saison brewer's yeast.
Are we going to get anything more specific than that?
The Lao Brew farmhouse brewer's yeast.
In the right ballpark with the Belle Saison being the answer.
Belle saison. Okay, so pretty close. Yeah. Okay. Well, look, all evening, Alex, you've been able to hear us make fools of ourselves, or sometimes not, but generally, yes, I get it wrong. Finally, it's time to turn the tables. So, Alex, I know what yeast you got, and you don't.
So, yeah, kind of. I think I went with a middle route in terms of how much effort I went into trying to guess what was going on here. Kind of like Adam, I believe. I was trying to get rid of some crap in my kitchen, and grabbed basically the remaining amount of some North Star pills that I assumed was about 8 pounds remaining. Unfortunately, it ended up being about 15 or so. So I ended up doing I think it was like a 10 or 15 minute mash to try to keep conversion as low as possible so that it would still be remotely in the ballpark of the American lager-ish thing that I was going for. So I ended up adding a blue spirulina in it, which I don't think added much flavor. I think for my final answer, I'm going to go with Colm, Wallemant's Colm.
It's a Lallemand yeast. It's Nova Lager.
Oh, look at that.
Oh, wow. My Nova Lager was so clean and crisp.
But Nova Lager hasn't been out long enough to be expired.
A big thank you to the Brü Club for letting me participate. This was really fun. And my goodness, these are some knowledgeable members. They knew their stuff. Now, if you'd like to learn a little bit more about yeast with regards to temperature, we have a whole video about that as well. And you can watch that right here.